These things. I'm not going to say anything. Why don't you introduce yourself and everybody else as well? I can't cope with introducing 17 people.
Hello everyone. I think we will save the introduction for a little later, but we do have 17 people from Thailand, and I think that's a good indication that something is happening there. And so this is a photo I found on Google this morning when searching the word Thailand, and I think it's a good representative of what most people think about Thailand right now. You know, it has beautiful temples, nice beaches, good food, beautiful hills, cute elephants, and so on. So our goal here for this community is to establish sort of like your view about what Thailand is in a constructionist point of view. So hopefully we'll be able to convey that within this half an hour that we have. Okay, let's see. So, I really lost my remote. So 17 of us are here, and we're all from different organizations. We're not, working for one particular place, but we're all connected through this foundation called Sipitakiat Foundation. And it was established in 1996 by a group of Thai MIT alumni. And the idea back then was to create a project that would help improve the education system in Thailand, which they saw was not going anywhere. So, being an MIT group, they naturally went to MIT and found Paron, and that's how things got started. I actually found a few old photos off of my first digital camera of Seymour being in Thailand, very clear. There are a couple of these, but I found one particular photo that was quite interesting. It appears that he's giving a lecture about, am I reading this right? Piagettian curriculum. Interesting. Is there such a thing? Maybe there's a secret side of Seymour we don't know. But this was at a workshop filled with school teachers. I was part of that group, and I know that group very well. So I can tell you that back in those days, we had very little knowledge about what constructivism is. Actually, I remembered we had a reflection session that we were discussing whether or not constructionism is really different from constructivism, or did Seymour just misspell it? So we really started off from zero. And we learned a lot of things the hard way. And after about 4 years, unfortunately, the project sort of stopped for various reasons. So we sort of, left with a half-baked understanding about what constructionism is. But we are stubborn learners, and we had a good learner, a good leader. So this is Paron. He's a former CEO of the Siam Cement Group, so Thailand's largest business conglomerate. And he's been in the Senate for 13 years, so a very influential person. And for some reason, he fell in love with constructionism when he met Seymour. And after the project that we did with him ended, he continued the idea and helped the project to expand, and that's why we're here today. Okay, so this is sort of like an overall picture of what has happened in Thailand since Seymour was there. So this little box in the upper left is sort of the Project Lighthouse, what we did to Seymour. So Seymour was very careful in selecting the initial schools that he wanted to work with. He deliberately said that he did not want to work with sort of normal schools because he knew it would be hard. So we started off with a non-formal education center, which is sort of a place for adult education, but they also have programs for children who dropped out of school or simply couldn't afford school. So that was where we started. We started in 2 places, and you can sort of see that it worked pretty well because a lot of these places are still going on, although they have changed their nature a little bit. The foundation, however, wanted to work with normal schools as well because they thought that would be important. So you can see how we worked with this school, which lasted for 2 years. We had 4 more schools over here, which lasted for only 1 year, and then they sort of went away. So we learned the hard way, that working with schools wasn't easy. So what we decided to do, and I mean Paron, is to establish our own school. So we have a school called the Ittichai, School for Innovative Learning, which was specifically created to see how a constructionist school can be created with as little restriction as possible. And we have someone here to talk about that school here today. The orange line that you see here represents the village programs we have. Oops. So the non-formal education initiatives sort of turned out to be more suited for village development programs. And we have one case from this village that has started since 1998, and we have a story about how things went there. And lastly, if you notice, there's a huge group down here in red. This represents a program in industries where somehow the idea of constructionist learning was used for human resource development and productivity improvement. And that has really caught on. And in my personal view, I think this is the group that is most enthusiastic about constructionism right now. Half of our group here are actually representatives from the industries. So that's sort of the overall picture of what's happening in Thailand. And this graph is in the proceedings, so you can take a look at that if you want to see more details. Next, I will let 3 speakers talk about each case studies that we have: schools, village programs, and industries. But before that, because they're very different things, so I wanted to sort of synthesize the things that are quite common in these case studies. So over the years, we have sort of synthesized the key core principles that we find is very important when you do any initiative. One is, of course, constructionist learning, but also to have learning organization, which is an idea we borrow from Peter Senge, also from MIT. But the idea is to really engage learning in all levels. So often when we go to schools, we want to do constructionist learning with children, but the teachers remain the same. So for teachers, they need to be viewed as learners as well. And the constructionist process needs to be applied to the schools, to the teachers, as well as the students. So that's sort of the core idea of what we call learning organization. And lastly is the self-awareness development. This is sort of where, in constructionist learning, it's a learning cycle, right? And you have reflections and, things that you sort of complete the loop. Now, in Thailand, we have this concept already. It's a lot to do with the Buddhist religion. We have teachings about mindfulness, about meditation that sort of has the same idea. So it's a nice sort of syntonic way of, introducing Seymour's idea about constructionist learning there. And that has really sort of stood out. And you will probably notice that people will mention it in their case studies. Okay, so schools. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our speakers a little bit. So the first person who will talk about schools is Nalin. She's the vice provost of the innovative school I was talking about. So she's there since the very beginning in 1999 or 2001, okay? And she's going to do a master's program at Stanford University next week. And next we have Chanikarn, who has a PhD in mechanical engineering from MIT, did her master's at the Media Lab. She will talk about the village programs. She's teaching right now at King Mongkut University of Technology in Thonburi. And lastly, we have Tawan. He's a 5th grade teacher with a PhD in aerospace engineering. So yeah, so he will talk about the the programs that we have with industries. And we actually have a lot of people from industries here, so they might answer some of your questions. Okay, so let's start with schools.
So may I speak right here? Okay. I'm excited. Right. My name is Nalin. Okay, and I'm a teacher studying from 2001, and I started my teaching career in that year. I have a background as a filmmaker, and I consider myself an artist. Never expected myself to be a teacher, but it becomes like a long, lifelong learning to be a teacher. This is the 14th year, and I feel like privileged to start my teaching career in the constructionist way. Okay. Referring to one of the articles that Paron wrote about, an art class about that the teachers and students carving the soul. And what struck me is the students and teachers are so naturally into the artwork, carving and helping each other, so dynamic, and everyone is so happy in that class. And I like what he said in that article. Is what if we have the mathematics classroom in that kind of atmosphere? I really like that question, because I consider myself an artist and I have math phobia because of my education experience in the past. And back in 2001, 14 teachers, the first generation of the teachers in Thailand, was we are together in one workshop. We are doing the logo programming workshop. We have no idea what constructionist is. And okay, they just give us some books and put us in that 1 week workshop. And what struck us is in that workshop, it's so intensely happy moment for all the teachers. How happy it is, normally we have the snack breaks and lunch break. It is so difficult to get everyone off their seat and go out. And at the end of the day, we have to turn the lights off to, go home and rest. And that's really very inspiring moment to me as a very new teacher. I asked one question to the facilitator on that day, I don't know how to be a teacher, and please tell me what we are doing here. I'm not going to be the programmer, And he said you can see how happy we are in this 1 week workshop. And wouldn't that be wonderful to have this kind of moment in the real school? And we are trying to make that happen in Thailand. And that's the starting point of my teaching career. So the dream of the Sipitakiat Foundation and many teachers landed in King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi. Okay, we are a part of the university that's accredited by the Ministry of Education, with a lot of flexibility to manage and the operation by ourselves. We just guarantee that our students will be able to meet the standard, but please let us do things in our own way. We need the space for exploration and experiments. And we are so lucky to have that space in the university. So that's how we really think of what would it be like? What would it take to really have a school that really help the students learn? Not just remember something to take the test and get a certificate. How can we make it more meaningful? And we start off with the model of 3 things. The first one is we promise to ourselves that I have no idea what constructionist is, but we will try our best to deliver the constructionist learning environment to our students. And the management culture, as Roger mentioned earlier, that to help the students learn, the teacher really need to be the very good learner by ourselves, as well as the school management, school administrators. So we kind of set the new structure of the school by using the philosophy of the learning organization, which I will be elaborate later. And the third one is the self-awareness development. I was confused by this the concept, why do I have to do sit meditation for 7 days, no speaking, and what, I'm not a religious person, I asked a lot of questions. But I turned out to understand later that to develop your self-awareness really helps you to understand your thinking process. How could I help the students to develop their thinking process without I myself understand how I think and how does it work here? So self-awareness really helps us to develop our learning process. So this is what we are doing at our school. For the constructionist, our DSIL constructionist model, so we allow the students to come up with a project of their interest instead of learning things in subjects and takes exam. The student has the voice and choice to come up with the projects of their interest. I would like to make the vehicles that helps the flood victim, or I would like to know how to make a pizza. I really like to eat pizza, and I wonder how they made a good pizza. Whatever that interest, then we start from that. And then the student get a chance to plan, and there are facilitators help supporting them to get the knowledge and incorporate the multidisciplinary knowledge into those experiences. And at the end, we get the students to have the reflecting time for themselves. What did I learn? And how did I learn from this project? So this is how the learning cycle in the students goes on. This is not very good quality of picture, but this is the example of the idea of the project. That this boy would like to make a machine that help extracting the rice seed faster, and what he will be able to learn from this project. Okay, so the kids really get to make things in the school. We provide the constructionists and also other types of tools to encourage and empower them to really construct something to represent their idea to us and be able to improve and solve the problems really physically in front of them. And we also have the reflection and sharing. Students come together to share their learning experience since they learn so many different kind of things. In this way, we found that instead of one person learning one thing, but together we learn so many things that we really learn and share with each other. Instead of one subject that I can learn so many things that, and there are so many interesting projects in one room. And that's really helped the student continue to have further interest, the project interest. And at the end of the term, the students get a chance to present their product to the parents, to the teachers, and to the peers, and get the feedback from others, what else that they can make it better next time. And we are the school that not separate the students by age level. We separate, classify them into the learning skills, a early learner and intermediate and advanced learner. And we provide different models that will be responsive to their learning requirements. And we spend more than about 50% of the time doing the project. And we have only 3 subjects of the compulsory classes, which are Thai language, English, and mathematics. So very minimum compulsory classes, and we give them the space to explore. all other subjects in the multidisciplinary way. And for the learning organization, we have the space for the teachers to have the voice and choice, the same way that we would like them to give to the students. The teacher will be actively participating in making the school operation plan. We talk a lot together and discuss, and the school director will be there for us to give us support. He always say, we have one vote, the same, equal in this room, so feel free to open and speak up your ideas. This is the way to help the school to be responsive to the change in the children. You know, kids change very quickly, and if we rely on the top-down management, it will be so not fast enough to respond to the change of the kids. And lastly, about the self-awareness development, we do some meditation, and the objective of doing this is to get us to be aware of our own thinking process, and as well as increase the ability of each one of us to be able to listen to each other better. Collaborative learning, you really need to be able to be very open to the differences. And this is one of the tools that we find it very effective to help us to be able to really talk and really listen to each other. And we develop the self-awareness not just through the meditation. We involve some art practice, like doing some painting or flower arrangement, really help the teachers to, focus and develop the inner quality. And we also develop through the contemplative dialogue practice. Okay, the school today is the 14 years of the school, and we still keep developing. There are many systems that need to revise and need to make it happen to really support the variety interests of the kids. And we are still strive doing this. And we are not just doing constructionist. As a practitioner, I can tell you that constructionist and instructionist, you have to deal with this two extremes all the time, every day. And to me, they walk hands in hand together. They are dancing. Sometimes the students come to you and request me to do the instruction class for them when the motivation is right. But sometimes we do need to do something very open and constructionist to them. So this is very dynamic to the practitioner. So there is no single one model that will fit the school. The school needs to be very flexible and needs to be very dynamic, and the facilitator needs to be very, very sensitive to that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my part is to talk about the effect of constructionism in the community. So I'll start off showing you the video. Thank you. Yeah. So I got a great chance to interview. Okay, I suppose it goes the other way. Oh, I'll show the video first. So she's a person that we're going to talk about. Now she's overlooking and talking about the whole water management program that she did. This land used to be one of the most infertile land in Thailand, and now the area that she managed, she helped develop water management program over actually amounts to the area of about a quarter of Vienna. If you imagine the entire, a quarter of Vienna were to grow rice, that actually would amount to about $16 million US dollars per year in revenue. So she alone herself initiated that project. You might wonder, actually, this was her about in 1997. She told me that she was scared of that thing right there called a computer. Yeah, she said that because the computer was so smart, knows so many languages, she felt so inferior. This wasn't something that we've thought of designing technology for people to use, right? I mean, for her, it was like, oh, I don't want to touch this thing because it's gonna break. I'm too stupid to actually use it. That was really her barrier. It wasn't because the program weren't dancing in front of her or something. It was more of her own sense of lack of self-worth, and what actually had brought her to really wanted to explore that was she was in a lot of debt, and her husband was alcoholic, and her only child, her daughter, was feeling like, oh, the house is like, isn't functioning, mom's always working so hard, dad isn't always home, and all of that. So this is something that's personally meaningful for her, to take a leap of faith, to begin to do something that she was not comfortable with. And I want to talk a little bit about, this was a snapshot of her journal, which I forgot to bring, but a lot of the times when I was actually interviewing her, it drove me to tears. And in here, she was talking about, this was maybe a few years into her beginning to learn about Constructionism. And she said, even if, sorry in the back you can't see, but I'll try to read. Even if I'm uneducated, I will learn together with everyone. I will not lose the opportunity to learn because of poverty. I used to think that I'm too old to learn, but today I understand the real meaning of the word, to learn. I used to wonder why we have to learn computers. And then she went on and say so, and in the end she said, learning never ends. So this was only a few years into her practice of Constructionism. And in the beginning, she started off doing projects that she was really unsuccessful about. But what happened was, because of her mentors and facilitator, and one of which a lot of you have heard the name of, Kun Paron and Kun Bangkok, right here, Sky. She talked very fondly of these people. And to me, that was really what got her to take a leap and really like believe in herself to go with the technology. It wasn't really the technology that drew her, but it was the people. It was really the facilitators that really brought her in, and through the constant encouragement and sharing of hope, she was able to start the whole community around her. And this was actually at a village gathering, so it's like a bit too bright, can't really see, but this is her right here, and she was hosting this, it's like a seminar. People in the community were coming together and talking about, the problems that we have, like we don't have enough water, we have to walk miles and miles to get water. And how do we actually even just get out of this debt, which seems like a vicious cycle. So they started projects together. So that was really her making the secure environment for everyone to learn together as a community. So her classroom wasn't like a classroom. It was actually outside in the field. Yeah, and then together with people in the village, they're all learners, with facilitators who are Kun Bangkok, Kun Paron. And later on, she herself became really great facilitators, and I actually saw that when I was visiting the village. And these two are the 4th and 5th graders. There's a small innovative learning center situated right in, pretty much across where she lives. Yeah, so these two kids were, as we were walking around, I couldn't imagine that land was infertile. Like everything was so green. And that part of Thailand used to be, I kind of, to admit that I dread going to that area, because it, was known to be very dry and very hot and just kind of unpleasant. But when I was there, the weather was so nice. It was so much better in Bangkok with ACs and everything. But these kids were, they, at dinner we were talking about, they were doing the corn project or something. They plowed the land, and they were putting in seeds into each of the little holes that they drill. So what happened was, Nanoi, who's actually the main figure in the story I'm telling you, she asked them how many seeds you put in of those holes. And these two kids said, oh, we put a few, maybe 4 or 5. And because the corn seeds are very expensive, and she said the one that they bought were the most expensive one. So only if you put in one, it will grow out. But she never said you were wrong. She said, now that you've learned that before you actually take action, or maybe you should begin to do some research. They use the word research in a lot in in the community, which is I find very interesting. Sometimes when I say the word research, it just comes with all these notation of very scientific but what they think was really meaningful for them is this process of continuous learning and iterative learning, and for them that's I understand that's what they think is research. It's really good. So I want to end with this slide. This was a very old picture I took from her album. But this, 80-year-old man, he was learning to use a computer. This was my attempt to translate what she wrote in her journal. It said, today more than yesterday. Oh, it's actually the words that Paron said to her, that she said she will remember for the rest of her life. And it was, to learn today more than yesterday, tomorrow more than today. She said, living to learn, learning to live. For her, it was the same thing, to learn and to live. I guess, again, I'll re-emphasize those three elements that was talked about earlier. Constructionist learning, because you can really see the applicable, it's so seamlessly integrated that it was almost really hard for us to make those three elements stand out for you guys as a message we try to deliver. Because it was so seamlessly, as part of their life. Learning organization, she created the secure kind of environment for everyone to learn together, including herself. Self-awareness development, not talking so much about technology, but what she did overcame was her sense of lack of self-worth, and part of the technology that really helped her begin to become self-aware and reflect and make plans ahead was something very, very simple. She was using Excel and all of that. But so I'll pass it on to the next speaker, and he's gonna talk about industry. Yeah, thank you.
First of all, I just want to say it's my honor to represent the stories from Thailand. Actually, I'm pretty far from what everyone doing here. A month ago, I was still planning the mission for the satellite flight, for the telecommunication satellite flight. But fortunately today we have two people that is actually the owners of these stories coming with us. They are sitting at the back. So anybody who is interested in these stories, if you could stand up. Let's go talk to them and share the experience, the real experience with you. I really is pretty exciting. So let me first start. Everybody should sense it from your changing of the behavior in buying things. Anybody plan to buy the next iPhone next month? What if the competitors launch the competitive products? What will you decide? So the business world changing exponentially, and the organization that can respond to this change fast enough and to take the windows of opportunities that shut and open faster than ever, they have to have the ability to learn to live with this change. An organization that can learn faster than its competitor can survive sustainably in today's business world. In Thailand, there are many places that use this established learning infrastructure that leads to the productivity improvement and better business results. The two cases that I will show you today can be considered the two successful stories. The first case comes from petrochemical industry business. This staff development program called C-Shell, the Constructionism Chemical Engineering Practical School. This program was founded to overcome the problem in operations. The problem is the staff lack the learning and thinking skill to solve the problem at hand. every time there was a problem, there was a need to wait for the supervisor to come fix the problem. So this delay could damage the process. The next program comes from the sales and marketing business. This is a bit different. This program was founded to give the staff the skill to respond to the changing habit of the customer in the consumer market. These two programs was constructed on the same foundation. It's constructed based on two key ingredients, learning organization and constructionism. By having the meditation and mindfulness acting as laying the foundation for these two main ingredients, and facilitator acts to keep this process running. So in the industry, the current situation of the employees, they have no sense of urgency. They just don't want to go out of their comfort zone to start doing something. There is the belief that they just cannot learn anything because they're just out of school and because they have been working in the same place for a while. So they just believe that they already know everything and don't have to learn anything more. And the self-awareness. They just don't know what they think when they make some decision. This staff development program was founded to correct all these problems, to adjust the mindset toward the learning, and with their facilitators, help to keep this process running. The next two slides, I will show you how these established learning infrastructures lead to the productivity improvement and a better business result. The first case comes from the CSHIP program, which is a program from the petrochemical industry business. This program was founded like the staff from the company will be taken out from the regular day job and come to this construction camp, which will last for a couple of months. The regular operation of the plants, there will be a steam released from the operation to the outside for some certain reason, like for the safety of the pressurized vessel. And in the past, no one saw these steam loss as opportunities to improve the productivities. Everybody's overlooked this ambiguity. Also, the owner of this productivity improvement project. After he went through the CSHIP program, he see these steam loss as the opportunities and started questioning them. And he come up with this energy recovery system, which will recover the thermal energy from this steam and reuse it in the plant. The most important is this system can save the company almost $200,000 a year. This staff have been working in this company for 15 years. Imagine if he can see this as an opportunity in the first day of his work and come up with a system. The company during these 15 years can save up to $2 million. This stress the importance of the learning skill of the staff toward the direct business result of their company. The next case comes from the sales and business area. The learning tool in this case will be a bit different from the previous case because of the nature of the sales and marketing area. So the tools in this case will be the action learning because it responds well to the dynamic of the consumer market. In this case, this is home construction material market. Normally the products flow from the original distribution center to the customer at the end like this, but this process cannot respond to the market well because the changing of the demands of the customer is just too fast. With the action learning, now the market will become the classroom for the staff and the real business case become the problem to learn. The staff will go from distribution center and learn from the customer directly, the habits, behaviors, and the real demands. And they'll get back to create a coordinated strategy to respond to these demands. And this is the example of the case that we can get from the action learnings in the real business case. The case is the company want to introduce the 5mm thick roof tile to the consumer market. The problem is they need to break the habits of the customer, because the customer usually buy the 4mm fixed roof tile, which is the current product in the market. So they took the opportunity that there is the hailstorm taking place in certain time of the years in this region of Thailand. And when it took place, a lot of houses that used the 4mm roof tile got almost 90% damage, while there is less damage for the house that used the 5mm roof tile. So the action learning will come up with this key solution for this problem. There will be several experiments to try to understand the real behaviors and habits of the customers. And then there's one idea come up that the health is actually like the ice cube that we use in our drinks. So they come up with the activities to let the customer throw the ice to the roof tile and let them see by themselves which one is stronger. And actually, I believe this is the way that customer construct the knowledge, and with this, it can break the habits. And I have the video clip of this event, so you can play. You can see the customer come and try to throw the ice cube to the roof tile. The left one is a 4mm, and the right one is the 5mm thick roof tile. They can see it firsthand which one is durable, which one is the product they want to buy. Right. Right. So this is an example of the real events that can actually use in the industry and return it something. In the industry, normally when people try to improve the productivity, it goes like this. People try to improve the same old system on their own mindset. Normally, nothing improves. Only some certain operational procedures improve, but not entirely. This loop is not productive because there's no learning in it. With the learning infrastructure, the staff will be exposed to the activities and tools that will be used to adjust the mindset and draw the motivation. Then constructionism will come in to give the learning experience that matters for the learners. And then when to expand to the organization level, the learning organization will help creating learning culture. And then when the organization starts to learn, the workplace transforms to the learning organization. And this is the goal that we can have. So just skip this and go to the takeaway message. I believe the key factors of the success here is the balance of these ingredients here, the constructionism, learning organization, and the self-awareness through the meditation and the facilitator used to run this cycle. I want to stress here that the facilitator is the key ingredients who turn the wheel of transformation and lead to this success. Thank you.
So, we're out of time, but I have one last thing to show. 2 more minutes, please. So, we've been trying to think about, so what have we done that might have contributed to the constructionist community? So we have these, but we don't have time to go through them. But I think I'd like to still play a message from Paron, who's made a video recording of him talking about leadership. Because what I think we have in Thailand is the experience working with so many organizations that wants to change, wants to adopt constructionism in their practices, and we have failed cases, we have some successful cases. So I think we have experience in terms of leadership when you want to approach and establish an initiative. So let's hear what he has to say.
Dear Constructionism 2014 participants, I hope the case studies presented by my colleagues were interesting and useful to you. We have a disadvantage of being far away from the constructionist community, and we had Seymour with us for only a few years. But please allow me to re-emphasize what we believe is our most main contribution to the constructionist philosophy. First and foremost, for any organization to succeed, the CEO must be on board. This is true for every school head, every village leader, and every company executive we have worked with. This CEO or leader must be an active facilitator who really gets involved in the transformation process. The person must have courage and is willing to negotiate with existing rules and regulations in order to minimize bureaucratic obstacles. Secondly, the most powerful and sustainable change is driven by faith, not as in religion, but as a probable philosophy. Creating this faith is a gradual process driven by the initial small successes that leads to personal transformation experiences. Changing people's lives is a diverse, context-specific, and time-consuming process. The success from one place is not easily replicated. Therefore, the growth of a constructionist community is a socio-cultural process that cannot be mass-produced. Lastly, schools must see themselves as learning organizations. It is as much a lifelong learning process for school as it is for its children. Schools don't suddenly become constructionist, they grow into it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what to say now. Yeah, actually I do know what to say. My visit to Ban Samka School a few years ago, which is the village shown there, was one of the most inspiring opportunities I had in my life, actually. I think we definitely ought to consider whether the next Constructionism conference shouldn't be there. Right, well, 4 minutes isn't enough to do this. I'm driven by you. Look, all we can do now in 4 or 5 minutes is have a few questions and comments. But I feel like we need a whole hour session, Gerald. Where are you? Yeah. Maybe over coffee we should discuss how to maximize our collective wisdom and our learning from our Thai colleagues. Anyway, for a moment, Edith.
I just would like to thank speakers from Thailand and also our speaker, Ronis. And I just would like to point as a pointer that there is something in common between contributions of this morning. And what I love about both of them is, in my words, we see that the constructionism community is bringing Bronfenbrenner and more ecological models back into the culture. And when I compare what has been said this morning with what has been said yesterday, in general, there is a much, we have made progress in the sense that we let the creators of and the participants in these projects to actually share their ideas and creations in different ways. And what I suggest is that we discuss in the next days the different cultures of participatory design that have been evolving out of these different contexts because they have a very different feel to them, although they have some principles in common. So that's the first thing. The other thing is I see a shift from the notion of objects to think with to boundary objects that is very interesting, and it comes from the same source. The notion of boundary object has also been used in architecture, and it started actually in the participatory design traditions in Scandinavia, and Thomas Binder, who worked at Delft University at some point, has contributed greatly to this notion. So it's just this idea that the concept of object to think with by Seymour, if you take on a more ecological approach, becomes a boundary object, because it's an object to think through with other people. And the last comment has to do with the fact, at least in Chronicles, but I think also in your presentation, what is very nice is that you can see that there is almost a recursive quality of some of the principles that emerge. They are not given top-down. When you work at a very microscopic level, to rethinking, for example, what the book is, and at a very macroscopic level, which has to do with how to organize the people who are going to think about these questions. And this is what was the assertion of the forgotten Bronfenbrenner, who actually worked on creating kindergartens. And he was always interested in how the micro context gets influenced by macro contexts and vice versa. So I just see it as talking points and that try to capture some of the progresses that have been made, I think, in the different practices and communities of interest. And they have very different tones and tonalities to them, I think deserve to be discussed during these days.
Okay, I have a suggestion for this conference, which is that a Friday lunchtime is an extended lunchtime, which is 1 hour 20 minutes. I suggest, Gerald, this is up to you, if we could borrow this room for 40 minutes during that lunchtime, people could bring their sandwiches in here, and the Thai group could answer questions and discussion and a bit more material, just as an additional possibility. Otherwise, it seems to me that we have this wonderful opportunity to learn from them and we won't use it properly. Shall we look into that?
But we have no sandwiches. We go to other places.
Oh, it's not here. Okay. So we'll have to try and do this some other way. We have time for one more comment, I guess. All right, leave it to Gerald and somebody else, not me, to try and find a solution. Thank you. Just to thank all the speakers and also the people behind the speakers who we couldn't have all 17 in the Thai group. Thank you very much.